Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of A.V.Astronomy. And if this is your first time stopping by, thanks for watching. So today, I wanted to talk about polar alignment. And I'm going to go through, of course, the process and setting that up in SharpCap, which to me is one of the most efficient ways to do your polar alignment. But we're also going to cover some tips and tricks and just a few things that you learn when you've been doing this so many times that really help you get the most out of your polar alignment. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is check to see if your mount is level. This is very important because if it's not, it can throw off the polar alignment and cause it to trail off inaccurately, which will just hurt your guiding performance. Okay, so let's go ahead and check that real quick. So it looks like mine needs a tiny bit of adjusting. Not much, it's almost perfectly level, but that's definitely the first thing you want to check. The next thing you want to check that some people overlook when it comes to polar aligning is the balance of your mount. A poorly balanced mount will not auto guide very well. You'll lose a lot of guiding accuracy if your mount is not properly balanced. So let's go ahead and do that now and check and see how that looks. Okay, so when you're balancing your mount, you want to release the clutch, the right ascension clutch, okay, and just kind of let this thing go. See what it does. Now this one's a little bit more bottom heavy than it normally would be because I don't have all the wires up to it, but I'm gonna let you see here how this moves. That's too heavy. What you want to see is something more like that's about right there. You see that slow, steady pull? You could even go a little slower, but that would work. I mean, I've gotten good guiding off that. I might move that up just a tad more. You want it to pull. There you go. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it is slowly pulling. What you don't want is to do this and it just stays balanced, like it doesn't move at all. That's what you don't want, because the gears won't properly mesh and it just leads to all sorts of problems. So make sure it pulls a little bit like that. That right there, to me, I'll take that all day. That's good. Now let's check declination. Let's see what we get. It's a little too bottom heavy right now, but again, part of that's because I don't have all the wires that I normally would have hooked up in here. But just for the demonstration's sake, I'm going to make the adjustment. So what I have to do, since I know it's bottom heavy, I got to slide this telescope up. Just a tad, not much. Maybe about a ½ inch or so. And let's see what happens now. Now it's perfectly balanced. That's what we don't want. You see that? There's a demonstration of what you don't want. It's not favored in any direction or the other, and that will lead to problems. So let's take that back down a little bit. Not a lot, just a tad. I think I went a quarter of an inch there, half the distance. Let's see what we get. There we go. Just a slight pull down. Could even tweak that just a tad more. Just a pinch. I mean, I went like just a pinch. We still want it to pull, but not quite as fast. There you go. I'm good with that, in case you're wondering. Because some of you have asked in the comment section on previous videos now, how slow is slow when you're looking at a slow pull. To me, that right there is for declination is pretty good. It tends to swing a little faster as it gets closer to the bottom, but that initial pull there, that's okay. You could go with that. And that is it for the first two steps. But They are very important steps. Do not skimp and skip out on that. Don't go straight into polar aligning if you have not leveled your mount and you haven't checked the balance of your mount. And I know in the demonstration I don't have everything wired up. Obviously when you're doing the imaging session, you want to have everything on that you're going to have on there. Everything, all the wires, whatever accessories you got, everything on there, and then check your balance. All right, and now that we've done that, let's move on to actually getting this thing polar aligned. All right, so now that we have balanced the mount and we have leveled the mount, we're going to load SharpCap, okay? And if you haven't used SharpCap before, here's the link to download this program. It is free software. Highly recommend it. It does an excellent job of helping you polar align your telescope. So let's go ahead, and you've loaded the program. What you'll do is you'll connect to the camera. You can hit rescan in case it's not picking it up. In my case, I'm using the QHY53. Okay, so we can see some stars in these images. So you go to Tools, scroll down to polar align. Sorry about the dog. Neighbor's dog's still up. Sorry guys. Oh yay. So once you click polar align, hit next. Okay, it's gonna survey. Okay, it's picked up 60 stars. It says press next before rotating the right ascension axis. So we hit next, and then we go on over to the mount. We're going to rotate the right ascension. Okay, so let's do that. Alright, so as it stated, we're going to rotate this 90 degrees. Release your right ascension clutch. Rotate 90 degrees, and there we go. Okay, so we rotated the right ascension axis 90 degrees, and as you can see here, I'm actually pretty well polar aligned because I polar aligned this last night. But we're going to tweak this. We're going to see if we can get that number a little lower. That's good, but we're going to tweak it so you guys can see what kind of adjustments need to be made. So let's hit next. So I've hit next, and now we can make adjustments to the altizimuth, azimuth knobs. So I'm going to get you guys a closer look at what that looks like. Okay, so these are the azimuth, altizimuth knobs. Now, with this given situation here, I don't have to do much adjusting. So the first thing I'm going to do is release the locking bolt here for adjusting the altitude, and I'm going to make the smallest adjustment. So you're going to have to just get a feel for this, but as you loosen one and tighten another, it'll move in this direction, left to right. And at this point, I mean, I'm at 30, 45, 36 arc seconds. My adjustments are going to be really small, so I would make really small adjustments here, and I'm just barely moving these guys. I'm now at 22, which I will take that any day of the week. Okay, so I didn't have to do a whole lot of adjusting on the altizimuth, I'm sorry, on the azimuth knobs here. On the altizimuth knob, you'll make adjustments right here in the same fashion, really small ones if you're already close, okay? What I have found though is once you get those numbers looking good on the screen, it is very important that when you release this clutch right here, the right ascension clutch, and you bring it back up to where you started, okay, in the original home parked position, that you tighten the clutch to the same level of tension that you did when you had it turned 90 degrees. In fact, I have found that you can actually tweak the polar alignment by how tight you tighten this. So right now, see, it moved to 53. It moved to 53. So let's see what happens when I tighten this a little bit more. And that's beautiful. Now I'm down to 15. This is now polar aligned to 15 arc seconds, which is fantastic. But guys, it took me forever to figure out that I couldn't figure it out. I'd get a good polar alignment having it in that position, and when I would put it back and lock it, it would be off. It'd be like a minute and a half, and I'll just go back and forth. I eventually figured out that it has to do with the tension. This mount, the EQ6R Pro, is so sensitive to movement that the level of tension you put on this clutch here will actually make small movements to this mount to the point where it affects the polar alignment. So that was a huge thing for me, and I'm able to get sub 20 arc second polar alignments on a consistent basis now. So, but that's really it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else between leveling the mount, balancing the mount, and the clutch release situation. Walking through with Sharp Cap is a piece of cake. It walks you through and tells you each step what you need to do. Getting a feel for these knobs is something you're just going to learn through experience. You're going to have to, each mount I think is going to be a little different on, I know for one thing, like when I'm turning the left knob on mine, on this side, it's stiffer than the one on the right. So the one on the right, I can kind of predict its movements a little better. But the one on the left is, the movements aren't as obvious, so I have to be more careful. And it's just small things like that you get a feel for and you learn. It's just part of learning your equipment. But if you follow those steps I told you, follow what Sharp Cap tells you through that step-by-step process, and then check the tension on the clutches when you're locking them back down and see how that affects your alignment, I think you're going to get some really good results. Well guys, that concludes the video on polar alignment. If you have any questions regarding polar alignment, please put them in the comment section below. Also, if you're interested in any of the gear that I use for astrophotography, I've put some links down in the description below that'll help you get started on the right foot with telescopes, mounts, accessories, you name it. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, clear skies.